Hey, we're up.
Are we up? Well, I was about to say Monday. I got Friday on my mind, but it's not Monday. It's Friday. So do I have Monday on my mind?
On Monday, you will have Friday on your mind, but it won't be this Friday. It'll be the coming Friday.
Right,
And
but today is Friday. Do I have? Am I thinking about Monday?
even my old man looks good.
Michael, your knowledge is stunning, absolutely stunning. How the hell are you, my buddy?
I'm better than the Easy Beats, only had one hit and never got paid for it.
Yeah, that which was a let's admit it that it was a common practice in those days.
Yeah,
To have
the story in New York was the Brill Building story. The version that I heard was you have to have two hits, because you get paid for the first one when you get the second one.
right, because look at all this money it cost us to make this record. And then there's always the little guy standing over in the corner saying, you do it, or you do it.
If only he was a little guy. He's usually twice the size of Bub.
Well, no, Michael, he's usually a little guy and he has two gorillas behind
Oh well,
behind him.
okay. I got the brains and the muscle.
Yeah, I'm the guy giving the orders, and these guys behind me are the guys executing them.
And just to get that straight, the orders once again were to what? To do it?
You do it, you do it, or you do it.
Well, we already did the record. Now it's time to release it, but it's time to pay us, right? Is that what you're
Well,
going to do?
here's the bill. I mean, we're paying $30 an hour for the recording studio, so that
So
right there.
that cost us $90 to make the record.
So, and each one of these singers have to not get paid.
Okay, so there's another couple $100 per man.
And this guy here that plays the piano, my partner Cheech, he has to not get paid.
This is starting to add up. There's some serious not money.
Yeah, there's some serious people and serious money not getting paid. Then there's our distribution costs. If you look out the window there, see that Buick downstairs, that '57 Buick, with the guy standing outside of it. That's
Is that
cousin.
a is that a Roadmaster?
It's a Roadmaster. Yes, how'd you know? You could tell by the three portholes in the side
Yes,
of the
I
fence.
could.
That guy is our distribution system.
Does he want to not get paid?
Well, no. Cousin Willie gets paid no matter what.
So he's a Mott Street guy.
He's if you want to get paid, your best way to get paid in the music business is to try to get an address that goes from 1 to 1,000 Mulberry Street. That will always get you paid because people
So
just don't know. Is it your
177 Mulberry would be good.
177 Mulberry, certain numbers on Mott on the north side of Canal. Elizabeth Street is a really good one. That's 2 blocks over from Mulberry, and that's considered the suburbs.
The good part about Canal Street is when it rains, you can buy an umbrella on Canal Street anywhere along the way, and it'll last you almost until the rain's over.
Wall to wall umbrellas on Canal Street. Go to any subway exit, and there's one.
Umbrellas.
Matter of fact, it's Willie's pals that are in the umbrella distribution network.
And you would laugh when you say, "Why would I want an umbrella on a day like this?" But when it starts to rain, where are you going to go? Canal Street.
Yeah, you go to get an umbrella, or really any subway exit. I miss the old days in New York like that, where you could come up the stairs and there'd be one guy on this side selling watches. Oh my God, you wouldn't believe this. I went to New York and I got an actual Omega watch for $20.
Well, that's what it says on the label. Oh, the O
Well,
came off. Wait, it's just a mega watch.
we learned.
No, wait. I'm looking again. It's a MAGA watch. What the hell what have I done?
Yes, Omega. You learn early on, at least in the '50s in grade school in New York City, that
Keep walking,
don't
boy.
believe anything you see. That an Omega could be an Omega, that a Chevrolet could be a Cherry, that one letter can change the direction of an
Change reality.
entire purchase. So you learn that early. But if you're not from New York, they probably if you go to school in loosely tied shoes, Mississippi, uh,
Mhm.
you don't get that. You get the guys with the hoods are good, and the guys that have the darker skin are not so good. That's what you
The guy,
get
the
there.
guy, the guy with the hit record who never got paid.
Right, right. That guy, Mr. Ballard, who's standing up in that studio there at what is it, 1633 Broadway. I mean, he's it was 1679. I forgot
Did
now.
did Hank
Uh,
record in New York?
Hank
Hank
Ballard.
Ballard.
I don't
I'm
know
trying to think
actually.
of his label. I usually know the labels. I don't know his label. Not that that's an indication of where the song was recorded. They bought masters all the time.
Yeah,
But they love to watch the regional hits when there was a thing called a regional hit. You see a
right.
regional hit, you
Now
snap it up, change the label, bingo, nationwide.
that's how many. I mean, that's how Buddy Holly got it. As a matter of fact,
That's how Percy Sledge got it too.
yeah, they actually pressed and distributed. Was it That'll Be the Day, or was it Oh Boy? It might have been Oh Boy. I think it was Oh Boy that they pressed and distributed to stores without even having a contract with
They
Buddy
just
Holly. And
I
the
thought
the
that was
le-
my record. It is your record, but it's also our record. Okay, anybody can have a record.
well, the legend goes is that they thought he was black, so they thought they were going to just be able to get over on him.
But
We'll
he's a
have
white tasting
you'll have
boy.
your song in every jukebox on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And when he walked in, and there were three guys from Texas who were pretty damn white, people started looking at each other.
We're gonna have to get a contract with this feller.
Yeah, these guys might be a little smarter than we think.
Plus, his
So
manager Norman Petty has already stole the masters from him, so we can't steal them from him because they've already been stolen.
right. Is it okay? Is it fair game? Is it good pool to steal something that's been stolen already? Some people will tell you, yeah, of course it is.
That's what Treasure's all about.
Other people will say, maybe not. Maybe you shouldn't be doing that. So but
But
that's
it's an industry with a lot of maybes that never get answered. Is this legal? Maybe.
well, Michael, here we are in an industry, in the music industry, and I'm going to take this away because I don't think it's doing any good. It's, I don't know, distracting. We're talking about an industry who yesterday released a record that was done by two people who expired several, one 40 years ago, 43 years ago, 53 years ago.
John Lennon recorded the piano demo. They used his vocal from that. George Harrison and Paul McCartney and Ringo put on parts later. Paul and Ringo finished it recently. And so from the 1970s through the 2000s, that song was pieced together, and it's called Now and Then. The arrangement smacks of McCartney, I'd
Yeah,
say.
yeah. I mean, it almost sounds more. And first of all, well, let's before we go into analysis, let me just ask you, when you clicked on it for the first time, probably yesterday, right?
Yesterday
Um,
and the day before, I don't know.
yeah. What was your impression? What
I
did
was
you think?
surprised by the sound because in the last two singles they did off cassettes with John singing, "Free as a Bird" and "I'm in Love" or something like that. The vocal sound was not that good. The actual recapturing of everything and the completed sound of the songs, I thought were great, but the sound of John's voice left something to be desired,
Yeah.
considering it was taken from a cassette. But this one, they somehow our ability to work magic on sound and to recapture something that was never there has increased exponentially, and so his voice sounds like it was done in the studio. That's the part that I guess the song, the structure of the song, and the way they took it apart and put it back together again, I thought was very Beatlesque, but not sounding like anything they'd done before.
Yeah, I was listening through it through the ear of which Beatle album would it belong on?
Well, that's a good question.
Where would it have gone? And the best that I could come up with is it probably would have been somewhere on the White Album.
That's what I would guess because there's so much diversity on that album.
Yeah, it probably would have been. It probably would have been, and I don't know when the song was written or what, um, what the deal was behind exactly when he did it or came up with or he or whoever came up with the concept of the original song. But in listening to it, I listened to it through, after the first time I listened to it, I went back and listened to it again and said, where would this song belong? Where would it
I
fit
like
more
the White
perfectly?
Album analogy that you came up with because each song that they tackled on the White Album had a personality, had a veneer, had a look and a sound and an emotion and a mood to it. And they would just answer the needs of that mood and they'd have a song. Hey,
Yeah.
Bungalow Bill, where would that song be on any other album? Not. It would be an outtake. But also, this where was all the what's my favorite song in that? Glass Onion is on that album. I love that song.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit anywhere else. It could have been, I suppose, on Revolver.
Yeah. Or it might have been, the second idea that came to me is that something that the Beatles were famous for doing was it would have been the B side of something.
Yeah.
It would have been, um, what was the B side of Hey Jude? The Inner Light?
Or Rain.
Or, yeah. Anyway, it might have been, you know, sent to a B side somewhere. Because it didn't quite come up to the Beatles standard
For a
of the
hit.
day,
For
which
a hit.
I'm going to go that song was, written in 69, 70, close to the end. And, or maybe even after the end, who knows? But it was, um, it was a thrill just to have a new Beatles song.
Yeah.
Uh, Probably the last one with all four on it, unless somebody comes up with something while they're going through their drawers.
I don't think so. Well,
Um,
it's too late to add any guitars. It's just drums and it's just Ringo and Paul. What about the idea that I had a thought there, it's gone. The the reconstruction possibilities now are easier to do digitally than they were then. And I bet you that interlude with the instrumental and the background vocals was not on the original song. So you can make a song longer if it's too short for a single. You can extend it with arrangements and interludes and transitions that were never in the original piece.
right, and what I found interesting about it, in a real bizarre way, is that the musicians who were the string section didn't even know what they were playing on. They were brought into the Capitol Record Studios at Hollywood and Vine, and given pieces of music, rehearsed it, and the conductor was brought in. He conducted it, and they said, got their money at the door, and said thank you and see you later.
You mean they paid them? That
Sounds
doesn't
like they
sound
may
like
have actually paid them. Well, this is a different time than then. So they knew not what they were recording. They for all they knew, they could have been on a movie soundtrack. They could have been on anything.
no way to know.
So that stuff was figured out and then recorded without the knowledge, I guess, of any of the musicians. I wonder what they must have thought yesterday.
funny how today you'll take any opportunity to get your name in the print or on television or on Hollywood Tonight, good news or bad news. But the Beatles always worked in secrecy. That was the funny thing about their careers. What are the Beatles doing? Nobody knows.
Well, it couldn't go anywhere. I mean, when you look back on what they could do, they couldn't walk into
Capitol
Abbey Road
Records,
Studios because
right?
there were always, that they would have had a gazillion people outside waiting for them to walk out. Uh, they couldn't go to Electric Lady Studios or up in Sausalito, the record plant, or any of these different.
They couldn't go down Kings Road to get fish and chips.
Yeah, I mean, they were virtually prisoners of their fame. They couldn't really go anywhere. That's, matter of fact, that's one of the reasons that Lennon said that he moved to New York City, is because it was
Nobody
the only
cares.
city in the world where he could just walk around.
Go to the park.
And, people would walk by him and go, "Hey, John," and then, give him that kind of universal, which I doubt would even happen today. It was
I don't
just a
know.
different.
The only the biggest celebrities I saw on the streets of New York, excuse me, Jules Pfeiffer, the cartoonist and writer, sat next to me in the subway once. I thought that was pretty cool because he had all his drawings and papers with him.
Yeah,
And
but
on Central Park South, I walked along with Ed Sullivan for about half a block as we met each other casually on the street.
yeah, but that was a different time.
My point being, I was a good New Yorker and I didn't say anything.
Yeah, I think that well, there's a way you approach it. I remember I was with Rod Simons once, the late great Rod Simons, my good friend, and
In
um,
Seattle,
no, we were in New York actually. We were back in New York, and we were out late one night. I was showing him the nightlife in New York and things that were going on. We walked into a deli on 57th Street and sitting.
because you got to eat.
Yeah, you got to eat. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and say I'm kind of hungry. And Rod's going, yeah, I'm kind of hungry too. Well, come on, I'll show you where we can go. And it's the deli on 57th, down a block from the Russian Tea Room. I says, come on, let's go. So we go. We walk over there, and we walk in, and Jackie Mason is sitting at a table.
You could get a chicken, you could get a pastrami, you could
get a
get a
dish, you
soup.
get a chicken, you get a pastrami. It all depends on what you want to get. But don't get the pastrami because it has a little bit too much fat on it. So get the chicken. But
Tell
the
them no
chicken, I
fat.
don't know.
They'll see you coming, you look like a piker, you're going to get the fat on your pastrami. I told you not to. You got to order.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to order, don't come in here.
And so we walked in, and he was sitting at the table by himself.
4 in the
So I
morning, he was
looked at
hungry.
him, he looked at me, and Rod like pokes me, and I just go, give him this. So if he wants more interaction with somebody, he'll react to that. If he doesn't, he wants to be alone, he'll just, keep looking down at his matzo ball soup.
Or he could
And it
stand
wound
up
up
and
that
do
we
it.
sat, we ate our sandwiches, and it wound up talking to him for 20 minutes, a half hour.
Hey, great. Because he knew
But
you
there's a
passed the
way you
test.
approach it.
Yeah.
Today, with social media and everybody just thinking that if you're on social media, everybody has a right to jump down your underpants when they see you. It's a whole different story. I don't know that would happen in that way these days. People don't respect people's personal spaces anymore.
Are we saying it's no fun to be Brad Pitt, who can't go anywhere? I mean, there's a guy. I'm trying to think of someone that everyone would recognize, whether they knew his name or not, and that would be one guy who can't go to. But maybe he could go to the deli at 4 in the morning. I don't know. I doubt it.
Well, yeah. Let's go with Stephen Colbert. All right,
Okay.
he's a guy that most people will recognize. Can he walk down the street anonymously? Probably not anymore. 10 years ago, 50, well, before social media, you could walk down the street. You could, in New York. Now, other places, no, but New York had that anonymity about it. That if you wanted to be alone, you could, or not be in the middle of a million people, you just had to get into the middle of a million people, and you could be very alone. I don't know that worked. I mean, I don't know about LA. I didn't spend enough time there to be like that, to understand the vibe in LA. But it always seemed to me that anytime I saw people in LA doing stuff, that there seemed to be a crowd of people around them. For the most part,
There's a lot of tourists in LA, of course, and there's
yeah,
a lot more stars per capita here, but they don't all live here. They come into town, they do their work, and at 4 a.m, you see them in the deli or at Pink's in line. Well,
yeah.
in
I
New
just
York,
think,
you don't get in line, you get online.
yeah, one of the great things about New York is that it affords you a sense of, if you're a very famous person, it affords you a sense of anonymity. You can go to things, see things, do things that maybe in other cities it wouldn't allow you to.
And if you don't think
So,
that's true, just ask Eric Trump. Ask him. Go ahead. Ask him not what
well,
you're going to
see
do.
again though, much different time. If Eric Trump had been operating like he is, um, now, before the days of social media, you probably wouldn't have known him. You'd probably be sitting next to him on the subway. You wouldn't even know it was him. That's I don't know that he would. Well, it was also a policy back in those days where the media didn't mess with the children of celebrities, of famous people. Now it seems to be um, a thing of the past, except I got to say for Barron Trump, who you never really hear much about. You
Or
don't
his
see his
mother.
picture.
I think those two have been secreted away someplace. Are they in New York or Florida?
Well, I know Melania was with the Donald the other night at some affair down in Florida. So I don't know. I don't follow. I try not to follow. I see what I see on television and I follow the trial, but where they are and where they're moving and all that kind of stuff. It's like I don't watch Entertainment Tonight.
No, it's a
I
ghastly
just
show.
I have no um interest in where the stars are or what they're doing or what games they're playing or what red carpets they're on. It just doesn't interest me, except if he's, if some star is staying on my block, I'll go over and say hello. But other than that, it just doesn't do anything for me. Maybe I'm jaded, maybe not.
No, you're a New Yorker. You've seen it.
Well, not even that. It just doesn't. I mean, people should have their personal lives. They shouldn't be subjected to the kind of idiocy sometimes that we have to know everything that they're doing. But I also understand that that's part of um, putting, being famous today or being somebody of note, not even famous really, just being somebody of note that you open yourself to 24-hour, 7-day a week inquiry and judgment.
There's two ways around that. You can live in the big city, and not everybody wants to live in New York, but I find it an exciting and refreshing place to be. Walking down the sunny side of the street in New York on a beautiful day is not like anything else that you can find anywhere in the world. But if you're JD Salinger and you want to live in a small town and have your assistant do all your shopping, you don't have to live in the big city to get anonymity. You can do it in a smaller town and not be the only star in town, but not be available to anybody. Just you're locked up, and your personal assistant does all your interaction with the real world.
Well, yeah, true, but there's a certain, especially if you're creative, if you're a writer, a personality, somebody who relies on um, their environment to get their act, or not even act, just to get who they are. I mean, I know that when I was in Pittsburgh, um, I was always edgier and more outspoken and more. I had more of the oomph in me when I would take that weekend trip up to New York
Yeah.
and then come back down. There was just something about the city and everything that
The
it
energy.
offered
Yeah.
that brought that up in you. Um, I always remember I go back and sometimes I used to listen to the shows I did on a Monday after I came back, as opposed to shows that I did just before I left. And I was definitely more aggressive, more verbose, more um,
Focused.
focused. Yeah, when I came back from a weekend or a few days in New York, there was just something about it that recharged your batteries. So I could see where wanting to be there would, and being there, if you're in a creative field, would really, get your juices flowing.
And it's also funny to be in New York. If you live in New York, it would be a funny thing to have like a 3-day weekend when the city gets quiet. New Yorkers love that because the impression is that everybody left. Well, of course they didn't. Not even half of them left. Not even a third of them left. Where would they go? There's too many of them. You can't just say everybody in New York out. Here we go. Grab your coat. Let's go.
I used to love staying in the city. On a Memorial Day or a
Yeah.
4th of July
Because it was
or a
quiet.
Labor Day or a Columbus Day. Not so much Columbus Day because people were, but those days that were holidays that people generally went to got out of town, went to the Catskills, went to Long Island, went to wherever they were going,
They went to the
down,
shore.
the Jersey Shore, and you were walking around in a Manhattan that was lively, that was pumped up, but just had less people. And it was my favorite. Some of my favorite times in Manhattan were Sunday mornings from
Yeah.
6 to noon. Where you would walk around the city, where you would just it wasn't it didn't have the vibe of a big city. It had the neighborhoods really came into their own, and people were out and they were getting the paper and they were drinking coffee and going to the diner and having or eating their
People may not
egg
have.
and bacon on
Yeah.
a roll. I mean, it was just a different
Or standing in line at the hospital to get stitches because there's more bread knife injuries concerning bagels on Sunday morning than any other city in the world.
One of the best places in the world to be on Sunday morning was H&H Bagels. I mean that the line to get in there, you met just some of the more interesting people, and there was no. It was a very democratic place. The bagel store might have been the most democratic place in New York
Because you knew you had to
because
wait and you had to be good.
they didn't care if you were Woody Allen or Trini Lopez or whoever you were. You got on the line and you waited like everybody else. You didn't go to the back door. You didn't get. There was no delivery. You had to wait. It was just a status money, nothing. The only money that counted was the 12 cents that you had to pay for the bagel.
The funny thing about that, nobody ever in line said, these bagels taste just like the ones I got in Des Moines. They taste just the same. In fact, the Des Moines bagels probably are better, now that I think about it.
Nah, yeah, nobody ever said that. No, nobody. Yeah, that's one thing you can be sure.
Nobody ever said that.
Nobody ever said, boy, those Bruegger's bagels I got in Des Moines at the airport were much better than these H&H bagels. I mean, the flour was different. The yeast was, no, it just didn't. It just never, unless they were uttered in a mental institution somewhere.
Hey, I learned something last night. Speaking
What
of
did you learn last
the
night?
record business in New York, the Ken Burns series baseball was playing. And of course, the baseball season is over. But when that show comes on, try not to watch it. I'm telling you, try not to watch.
Oh, you can't. Yeah.
It's just wonderful. And at the end of the seventh inning, could have been the seventh inning, could have been at the end of the show last night, 2-hour special, 2-hour documentary on baseball. They played Carly Simon's version of "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," which you
Right.
probably know.
Yeah.
And what I learned in that is that "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" verse that we all know, "Take me out to the ball game." That's the hook to a song
yeah,
that
yeah.
has verses and intros and changes and all sorts of things around it. And I'd never heard that song before.
Really?
Ever. I had never in my life heard that first full version. And I thought, Carly, you have done something that I didn't think you were capable of doing. You taught me something about music that Mr. Smarty Pants thought he knew. Now, I don't know who wrote that song, and I take off my hat and I salute them.
Von Tilzer, I think his name is.
One guy wrote it?
Yeah, well, I think there might be two guys, but I know Von Tilzer is one of them and might be the I used to know more about "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
Anyway, the rest of that song is charming, and it should be sung more often in its full version.
Yeah, it's a great song, and I mean, I've been familiar with it for many. Matter of fact, I think I still have I probably still have 1,000 versions of it between records and so on and so forth. Jack Norworth is the other guy. Jack
Norwood?
Norworth. It's Norworth and Von Tilzer.
What year do you know?
Boy. Let me. I know it's the early. It's right at the turn of the decade. It's probably 1909, 1908, something like that. Let's see. Copyright somewhere. Take me out to the ball game. 1908.
Wow.
Albert Von Tilzer and Jack Norworth.
Those guys. I hope they got paid.
And yeah, I think they did. That might have been. Let me see if I can if I can make this work here.
Anyway, I bet Carly Simon's version is on Spotify, so find it and listen to it and understand the whole song is a beautiful creation.
Yeah, yeah, it's it's a great song, and it yeah, I mean it's just an incredible song, and it really, although again, people, we now always sing it at the ball game, which, if you think about it logically, is pretty stupid to sing it at the ball game, because the song is "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and you're already at the ball game. So why should you be singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" when you're at the ball game already? But
well, that's a good. Those are strong questions.
so I don't know. But yeah, great song. That was never sung at a baseball game when I was a kid. I mean, they didn't start doing that until the 90s. And but it's been recorded in several different versions by several different artists. I love the King Curtis version, where he just blows it on sax and does a great job of it. Trying to think if there's other.
King Curtis was murdered in New York City while sitting on his stoop.
Yeah.
Some fool came by. King Curtis told him to move along, and then the guy ended his life. What a crime! What a loss!
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, he's one of those talents that never really, outside the music business or outside people that knew about music, never really got his due. He was taken much too young.
Arranger, producer, songwriter, great sax player, and listen to, if you don't know who King Curtis is, listen to Memphis Soul Stew. This is going to taste all right.
Right. Listen to that, or interestingly enough, listen to his version of "Whole Lot of Love" by
Bam,
Led
bam,
Zeppelin.
bam, bam,
He does a saxophone version of that will, just he was King Curtis was wound up being Buddy Holly's arranger, and a lot of the stuff that the live band when Holly went out was um was King Curtis and his group of musicians.
Same thing with Aretha Franklin live at the Fillmore, which, if you haven't heard, you must listen to. King Curtis and the band backing her up, and her version of "Bridge Over Troubled Water"
Yeah.
is live is not to be believed.
She could really kill it, man. I mean, show me a song that she ever took on that she didn't make uh infinitely better by her living in it for.
Paul McCartney asked Paul Simon, he says, "Aren't you Jewish?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, where do you get the inspiration to write these beautiful spirituals that you write, like Bridge Over Troubled Water?" And it's a good question. So I guess he grew up in a Presbyterian neighborhood or a Baptist neighborhood. I don't know where he grew up. But where did Paul Simon grow
Well, the
up?
Church of England, right? I mean, it's
The Church of Queens.
yeah. Well, no, well, no. I mean, Paul Simon grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, Forest Hills. Him and Art both
Yeshiva.
went to Forest Hills High, and uh, they grew up in it certainly wasn't like they grew up in an Italian neighborhood or a German neighborhood or anything like that. They grew up in Forest Hills. Forest Hills was a predominantly Jewish neighborhood, middle class, working class Jewish neighborhood. When you would ride up Queens Boulevard, you would always run into, when you got to 63rd Drive and started going up into Forest Hills up Queens Boulevard, it's where you started to see stores with Hebrew writing on the front,
Right.
the meat markets and the delis. And many of the businesses had the Hebrew writing on the front and identified themselves as Jewish owned or Jewish operated businesses, where they would keep kosher, or they would that was so mixed in among just regular place, just something of every ethnicity. You know, it was just so diverse. I mean, it's diverse now, but
In another way.
it was well, no, it's still diverse. It's just that the nationalities have changed.
Yep.
It's you still have, if you ride up Queens Boulevard, now you're more likely to see um, a store that it has Sikh writing outside, another one that has Vietnamese writing outside, and another one that has some other type of Far East nationality. I mean, it's just a melting pot, which is what New York is designed to be. Interestingly enough, what it's done is it's created a this wonderful culinary experience. I mean, you can
Because
spend,
ask Jackie Mason, you got to eat.
yeah, you can spend, a week in Jackson Heights and Corona and Forest Hills and um, those areas and eat every kind of food on the face of the earth.
And meet the Queen of Corona.
Yeah, I mean, you can just go and you know experience everything. I mean, Jackson Heights, you go along Roosevelt Avenue at 37th Avenue, and there's everything. Anything that you could think of that you ever wanted to eat, pick a country, and there's a restaurant on one of those two streets that serves the food from that country. and it's become now a culinary destination for people. Queens has, but especially Jackson Heights, Woodside, Astoria, and Corona.
In fact, Anthony Bourdain, before he offed himself, did a show from Queens for just that way, eating on the sidewalk in the neighborhoods at night.
Yeah. When I was a kid, the only thing you could get on a sidewalk was a hot dog,
Pizza.
or later on, the meat stick.
Ah,
Which you never was sure what kind of meat it was, but the guy was out there till 5 o'clock in the morning. So
it was
you
meat.
know,
You could tell that.
it was something. It was something to eat. But back then the preferred method of eating at 5 o'clock in the morning was going to the diner or going to Manhattan, where again, all a myriad of different kinds of restaurants were open. Till
Including White Castle. You know what you were
Well,
getting
yeah, White
there.
Castle was up, but I'm talking about. I'm not talking about fast food. I'm talking about
Neighborhood food.
yeah, food that you went in and you sat down. I mean, the Chinese places were open all night. If you went to East Harlem, the Spanish places were open. There was a lot of them Cuban places, Venezuelan places. There's a lot of difference in if you like beef, you went to an Argentinian restaurant because they had really spectacular beef. Their people knew how to take a piece of beef and do a lot of things with it. Um, if you liked vegetarian stuff, uh, Indian restaurants again that were open until 5 o'clock in the morning. You could get just about any kind of food you wanted almost at any hour of the day. And then there was always the automat.
Oh my
If all
God.
else failed, you put your quarter in the slot and get
I
an
was
egg
I came
salad
in for a
sandwich.
sandwich, but I think I'm gonna have lemon meringue.
And that was the really one of the most interesting places to go and grab something to eat because the diverse number of people that were in there. You could go in there and run into an actress from a Broadway play and somebody who was spending their last 15 cents on a cup of coffee.
All
Sitting,
rubbing elbows.
yeah, sitting at tables next to each other, talking to each other.
There was a place when I first got to New York in 1969. There was a place at Times Square, and I wish I could remember the name of it, that it sold beer in tiny little glasses. They looked like beer glasses, but they were miniature. And you sat at a big counter that ran around the whole place. And there were tables in the middle, but you could order at any hour of the day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever you wanted from the menu on the wall. And there were people sitting around in tuxedos, in furs, and rags, and I can't remember the name of the place, and it's driving me crazy. Of course, it's not there anymore. But damn, it was a show. Anytime you went in there, I would always just stop by and look in the door and see who was hanging out that time if I was in Times Square.
Well, there was always, I mean, food was a great equalizer in New York in that,
Because that's
if,
Jackie Mason. You got to eat.
well, I mean, not just Jackie Mason, but especially late night food. Food from after the clubs closed, after the bars closed, after the discos closed, after the nightclubs closed. Um, Another place like that is out in Sheepshead Bay, Randazzo's Clam Bar was an Italian joint that was open till 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And you could go, you'd go out to Randazzo's, you'd drive out to Randazzo's, and again, you go sit down and you go in a restaurant, you sit down. A lot of times they'll sit you at a table with two other people you've never met before. Because well, you could wait for your own table, or you could sit here. Well, I want to eat. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm looking to eat. So sit me wherever you want to sit me. And but you could be sitting next to you never know who. It was that kind of place. There was always now this one was a little more Italian skewed, and it was a ride from Manhattan, so you didn't get as much of the Manhattan people out there, but you still got a good cross section of people that were eating their squingili and calamari and other stuff. And
Calamari. Now I'm hungry.
oh man, what I wouldn't do for a good squingili, order a hot squingili. Oh man, those were that was good stuff. And it would and the drunker you were, the better it was.
Because in your mind, the anticipation was slightly mixed with the booze.
Well, yeah, that's what made the Chinese. I mean, I don't know really that the Chinese food is, at Hop Key or at Wo Hop is better than anybody else's Chinese food. But that ride over there
Makes you
to
think
get
so.
that stuff when you were half in the bag was, was phenomenal. Your anticipation.
I learned something last night by watching that baseball documentary that I did not know about Casey Stengel. The Mets fired the poor guy when he turned 70. They fired him. They said he was too old to manage. I'm sorry, the Yankees fired him.
The Yankees fired him,
The
yeah.
Yankees fired him. Fired Casey Stengel. It's like firing Mickey
Yeah.
Mantle.
Yeah. Yeah. They believed that his
Because
time had come.
they lost to Pittsburgh, wasn't that it?
60, yeah. Yeah. They had lost to Pittsburgh on that famous Game 7 home run by
Mazeroski.
Bill Mazeroski, and yeah, they thought that Casey had lost it. And listen, to be fair, maybe he had. I don't. I would have given him. I mean, with the bank that he built up with that
Yeah,
team and taking him to the World Series. So I mean, he got him to Game 7 of the World Series.
not good enough.
But there was always there's always there's always a group of people that are going to say that you're too old to do anything. That once you hit 60, you're too old to do anything.
He said
And
he would never make the mistake of being 70 again.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The Yankees got rid of him and brought in I think it was Ralph Houck. Yeah, Ralph
Yeah,
Houck.
Ralph Houck.
And it got him a couple of more years, but then they fired Ralph Houck in 1964. Um, the and they hired Johnny Keane, who was the Cardinals manager, and
And the Yankees always thought the Cardinals were their farm team.
well, no, see the problem with the Yankees was that still wouldn't, not that they wouldn't because they had some, but they really wouldn't sign black ball players.
Right.
The Yankees and the Red Sox were the two last teams to sign black ball players. Whereas in the National League, they were aggressively signing black ball players.
The best.
Once they broke the color line with the Dodgers and Jackie Robinson, they raided the Negro Leagues. And so for the latter part of the 50s and clear into the 60s, the National League pretty much owned the baseball because they had superior ball players.
And the Yankees were still saying, "You got any big white guys that we can
Yeah,
sign?"
the Yankees were still looking to sign. Uh, Listen, the general manager of the Yankees, George Weiss, was the guy who in 1966, in the first amateur draft, didn't sign with the first pick of the draft, Reggie Jackson, because he was black and they didn't want trouble. and signed a guy named Steve Chilcott, who we all remember.
The
Mrs.
fabulous,
Chilcott doesn't remember Steve Chilcott. And one of the great horrific moves in baseball, but the Mets always have had a history of doing that kind of stuff. So they let Reggie Jackson go, and he was drafted by Baltimore, I believe.
ended up with the A's.
Ended up with the A's, or maybe he was drafted by the A's and then ended up with Baltimore. I forget which way. I think he was drafted by the A's actually, and wound up having a career of note.
With the Yankees.
Well,
Finally.
with every team he was with, really. I mean, the only
Yeah.
team that I guess he really didn't have the greatest career with was the Angels.
No, we forget about the Angel years.
Yeah,
Snake
we
Eating.
you know, I mean, the biggest thing he was known for in those years was being in what was that? The Police Squad movies. But yeah, the Angels' years were, nothing to write home about. But boy, his years with the Yankees and his years with the A's, especially.
He's working for the front office of Houston now, isn't he?
I don't know what he's doing right now. I thought he was working for the Yankees.
Well, he did an appearance in the pregame before the World Series, in the playoffs. I mean, when Houston was still involved.
Yeah, he might have. Yeah, I think he's working. I may be wrong, but I think he's a special advisor to Hank Steinbrenner. But again, every ex-Yankee could be, for that matter. So anyway, what did you think about Bosch winning that game? Did that was on? That was Tuesday. Have we met since? No, that was Wednesday night. So we haven't spoken since then.
It was just a one-sided romp, but I miss Boshi very much.
Yeah, yes, he is one of those players, those managers, I should say, that they don't quite get the credit that they really should get as a great manager. He's not the first name that leaps to your mind among, really when you start to talk about managers these days, you get the Joe Maddens and those names, but Boshi should be without a doubt at the top of the list.
Madden sort of lost favor with the league when he was with the Angels, of course, like everybody does who plays for the Angels.
Yeah, the Angels is a large black hole of baseball. I mean, people go there and nothing really good ever happens, does it? It's kind of a shame.
What are you doing this weekend, Vin? You got a show tomorrow, right?
Yes, I do. Tomorrow morning at 8:00, a little show called Drive Time Radio.
Can you move that to 10 o'clock, do you think?
It's funny you mention that, but I've been thinking about that, actually. I've been starting to, saying, geez, I got to get up at 5:00 in the morning to get the show ready and everything and to, just kind of pull everything together. And I'm starting to say to myself, this getting up at 5:00 in the morning on Saturday morning
It gets old in a hurry.
Is not conducive to my health. So maybe I got to start thinking about moving. But I have actually been considering for the new year a couple of things, but certainly moving the show to a later hour on Saturday is among them. Anyway. So we are. Yes, tomorrow we'll be talking about the Buick Envista and Buick itself, and why they are a brand that has survived in a world of purges in the automotive world of names. They have seemed to have survived and maybe even flourished, even as kind of a niche brand that only puts out SUVs. But they put out this new SUV that they've put out can be bought for under $30,000, and
Wow.
it's quite a vehicle. I think it's not going to blow the doors off of anybody, but as getting around cars kind of go for 30 grand, which is cheap for a car these days,
Sure is.
it's a pretty good proposition. So we'll talk about that. Um, we're hoping to check in with our friend that competed in the Rebel Rally that was held out in the California desert a week or so ago and wrapped up. And it's an all-woman uh, rally event that is gaining in popularity. And we'll talk to her about that. We'll talk a little bit about the Subaru that I'm driving this week.
What's the model?
I almost said the Invista, the Impreza,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's a new little Subaru Impreza, which is very impressing.
they make good vehicles.
It's a Don
And what's
Rickles.
your cartoon?
And our cartoon, we will pay tribute to, as we did the other day here, pay tribute to the 110th anniversary of the Lincoln Highway. So we will have, I haven't decided which of the cartoons about the Lincoln Highway I'm going to use yet. But I'm reviewing them and we'll present the best one to you. Who knows? Maybe we'll edit them up and give you
A
a
jumble.
patented twofer.
Well, have a good show, Vinnie. 8 in the morning. We'll be listening.
All right, Mikey, it's good to see you. Good to check in with you. And we'll catch up with you on Monday if the Lord's will and the creek don't rise.
It'll be a morose Monkey Monday, and we wouldn't want to miss it.
Let's just hope World War III doesn't break out on Monday or before Monday. All right, Mike.
Free
Peace,
Eric
love.
Trump. Free Eric Trump. Free Eric Trump.
Oh, God, please. Peace, love, and Manischewitz, pal.
What a wine. See you, man.
Take care. All right, let's end the stream there. Do that. Thank you all for listening, by the way. Bye-bye.